The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. I'm John David Wells. Today is Thursday. It is the 10th of August, year of our Lord 2023. And you're asking yourself, great, what is the Wells Report? Well, it is a report of the news. We report it honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. In other words, we depropagandize America's news. We make commentary, which is not news. Commentary is not the news. Commentary is opinion, yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. As always, we begin our broadcast with the front page, a digest of news that happened after the show yesterday and while we were sleeping. The House Oversight Committee has come up with more information. This from Newsmax. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer has delivered a third round of bank records, bringing the official paper trail of payments to more than $20 million from Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan during Joe Biden's vice presidency. The committee now has identified over $20 million in payments from foreign sources to the Biden family and their business associates, according to the memo that was released yesterday. President Joe Biden has infamously joked, okay, where's the money? And Ukraine energy oligarch said it would take 10 years to unwind the paper trail. Comer has promised more of these kinds of documents. In his allegations regarding the Biden family, the investigation is now in its 7th month. The reply was very, very quick from USA Today. They said this: Republicans on the House Oversight Committee issued another report yesterday criticizing President Joe Biden and his family for allegedly corrupt international business dealings, but critics, including the White House, said the report is a political hatchet job that offers no proof that President Biden was involved. The 19-page report was titled, quote, Third Bank Records Memorandum from the Oversight Committee's investigation into the Biden family's influence peddling and business schemes. Critics said that report and Comer's statement marked a clear shift in strategy by the committee from one claiming that it had goods implicating President Biden in corrupt schemes while he was vice president to one in which it says the lack of any such evidence must mean he was involved. President Biden, for his part, snapped at Fox News' Peter Doocy yesterday over a question about the president's son Hunter and his business dealings. There's this testimony now where one of your son's former business associates is claiming that you were on a speakerphone a lot speaking business with his associates. This was Doocy at a public event in Belen, New Hampshire. I'm sorry, that's Belen, New Mexico. I never talked business with anybody, said President Biden, and I knew you'd have a lousy question. Doocy then pressed the president, asking him, what makes it a lousy question? Biden responded, because it's not true. CBS News now reports that special counsel Jack Smith obtained a search warrant for information about former President Donald Trump's Twitter account earlier this year as a part of his investigation into the aftermath of the 2020 election. This according to court records unsealed yesterday. A ruling by a 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia revealed a lengthy battle that played out behind closed doors between the Justice Department and then the Elon Musk owns social platform now known as X. Smith obtained the warrant for data and records pertaining to the Twitter account of @RealDonaldTrump on January 17, 2023, along with a non-disclosure order prohibiting Twitter from sharing the existence of the warrant or its contents to anyone. Twitter was ultimately held in civil contempt, fined $350,000 for twice failing to comply with that warrant. The House Republicans say the FBI has obtained, or they've obtained from the FBI, that the memo that said that several field offices contributed to targeting Catholics as potential terrorists, conflicting with recent sworn testimony from FBI Director Christopher Wray. Republican leadership on the House Judiciary Committee revealed in a letter to Wray on Wednesday. It said the document they subpoenaed from the agency details how, quote, both FBI Portland and FBI Los Angeles field offices were involved in or contributed to the creation of the FBI assessment of traditional Catholics as potential domestic terrorists. This new information suggests the FBI use of law enforcement capabilities to intrude on America's First Amendment rights is more widespread than initially suspected. This, according to Chairman Jim Jordan, the Republican from Ohio, and co-chair Representative Mike Johnson, both Republicans, Mike Johnson from Louisiana, writing in that letter. USA Today reports the FBI shot and killed a man in Utah while agents were trying to arrest him at his home for making threatening statements targeting President Joe Biden ahead of his visit to the state. The man, Provo resident Craig DeLew Robertson, 75 years of age, was charged Tuesday with 3 felony counts for threats against the president, making interstate threats, and influencing, impeding, and retaliating against federal law enforcement and officers by threat. The shooting occurred at about 6:15 in the morning, Mountain Daylight Time. That happened yesterday when agents attempted to arrest Roberts and serve warrants at his home. On Sunday, according to charging documents, Robertson posted the following on his Facebook account, quote, "I hear Biden is coming to Utah, digging out my old ghillie suit and cleaning the dust off the M24 sniper rifle. Welcome, buffoon in chief." In national news today, out of Quito, Ecuador, reported by USA Today, an Ecuadorian presidential candidate known for speaking up against corruption was shot and killed yesterday at a political rally in the capital amid a wave of startling violence in the South American country. President Guillermo Lasso confirmed the assassination of Fernando Villavicencio, suggesting organized crime was behind the slaying. Villavicencio was one of 8 candidates in the August 20th presidential vote, though not the frontrunner. The politician was 59 years old. He was the candidate for the Build Ecuador movement. "I assure you this crime will not go unpunished," said Lasso. "Organized crime has gone too far. They will feel the full weight of the law." U.S. government is alleged to have contributed to a Pakistani coup. The former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, was forced out of office at the behest of the U.S. Department of State over his refusal to take sides in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. This alleged by a diplomatic cable leaked to the National Pulse. Asad Majid Khan, Pakistan's ambassador to the United States, was encouraged by State Department officials, including Assistant Secretary Donald Lu, to tell Pakistan's politically powerful military that if Prime Minister Khan were removed from power, the Central Asian nation could expect warmer relations with the United States. If Prime Minister Khan were not removed, or was not removed, Pakistan's generals were told the nation would face economic and political isolation. The foreign policy shakedown is not dissimilar to the tactic deployed by President Biden himself when discussing the removal of a top prosecutor in Ukraine. A Russian super yacht in government possession, the U.S. government possession, costs about $1 million in maintenance per month. This from CBS 8 TV in San Diego, California. A $325 million Russian yacht seized by the U.S. government more than a year ago was seen cruising around San Diego Bay this week. A ferryboat employee posted video on Facebook of the Amadea in the waters Tuesday off of downtown San Diego. The Amadea has been docked in National City for the past 13 months. U.S. taxpayers are footing the bill to maintain it to a tune of an estimated $1 million per month. The U.S. Department of Justice has not filed a court case that would allow the super yacht to be sold at auction. In news of the states today, in Hawaii, wind-whipped wildfires in Hawaii forced hundreds of evacuations yesterday, overwhelming hospitals, even sending some residents fleeing into the ocean to escape the flames as part of the popular tourist destination turns into a raging inferno in a matter of hours. At least 36 people have died in the Lahaina fire in Hawaii. Maui County and Hawaii Maui County wrote in a statement posted to the county website yesterday evening. Officials said earlier 271 structures were damaged or destroyed and dozens of people injured. Entire blocks of homes and businesses went up in smoke in historic Lahaina, that's the Lahaina town in Maui, where blazes fueled by wind from a passing hurricane were concentrated. In addition, 3 wildfires were burning on the Big Island, though 2 of them were at least 60% contained. Out of New York City mayor is asking for more federal aid. This from ABC News. With thousands of migrants still arriving in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams yesterday renewed his appeal to the federal government to help the city avert a budgetary crisis as expenses mount, now projected at $12.2 billion by the end of next year because of the influx of people coming from the southern U.S. border seeking temporary care and shelter. Our compassion may be limitless, but our resources are not, said the mayor. This is the budgetary reality that we're facing if we don't get additional support. Adams said this during an address that sought to put the onus on the Biden administration to help relieve the city from the growing financial burden experienced because of the immigrants. Quote, New Yorkers did not create an international humanitarian crisis, but our city's residents have been left to deal with this crisis almost entirely on our own, according to the mayor. Out of Massachusetts, from Fox News, a Massachusetts couple suing the state's Department of Children and Families said they were shocked when they first were informed of the reason why their foster application was denied. Mike and Catherine Burke, both devout Catholics, filed a federal lawsuit this week with the help of a religious liberty group, Becket Law, claiming the state restricted them from fostering children due to their adherence to Catholicism and their teachings on gender, sexuality, and marriage. According to their attorney, the state listed only one reason for denying their foster application, which was they would not be affirming to a child who identified as LGBTQIA. Corporate news this morning, there is a lawsuit filed by stockholders against Target for their ideas of certain product placement. This from Newsmax. A conservative legal group run by Stephen Miller, a former senior advisor in the Trump administration, is suing Target, alleging the retail company misrepresented risk to shareholders before there was customer backlash over the LGBTQ pride-themed merchandise. America First Legal filed the lawsuit Tuesday in U.S. District Court in Fort Myers, Florida, on behalf of shareholder Brian Craig, accusing the company, CEO Brian Cornell, and Target's board of directors for betraying their customers and shareholders with misleading representation about its environmental, social, and governance, ESG, with diversity, equity, and inclusion mandates, and also for causing shareholders to lose billions of dollars. Controversy erupted in May, and boycotts of Target were called for after the company rollout of its LGBTQ merchandise. Products included children one-piece swimsuits with closing tags that describe the items as having, quote, a light binding effect on breasts and, quote, tuck-friendly construction for male genitalia with, quote, extra crotch coverage. That is the front page today. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Wells Report. We give you the news honestly and fairly. We hope you enjoyed the front page, and stay tuned for the Wells Report coming up in just a moment. That, by the way, is how we get things started here on the Wells Report. We give you that digest of news and hope you find it useful. If you do, let us know. You can call us on the telephone at 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172, or you can join our chat room, also available to you on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Rumble, all live today. Patreon comes up a little bit later on after this broadcast, and we'll put that up there for your perusal. This is the Wells Report, and thank you very much for joining us. We will be back with more as we flesh out the stories we just gave you and more here on the Wells Report. Back in a moment.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
This is the Wells Report. Good morning. I am John David Wells. We have to start today with some sad rock and roll news. Rock stars who have passed away in 2023 include Jeff Beck, Robbie Bachman, Bruce Gowers, Van Conner, David Crosby, Topham, Tom Verlaine, Burt Bacharach, and more. Another name must be added to the list, and it's a sad one. Robbie Robertson, leader of the band, has died at age 80. Guitarist, songwriter, singer Robbie Robertson, who led the Canadian-American group The Band to rock prominence in the 1970s and worked extensively with Bob Dylan and Martin Scorsese, has passed away. He was 80 years old. This from Variety magazine. According to the announcement from his management, Robertson died yesterday in Los Angeles after a long illness. In a statement, Robertson's manager of 34 years, Jared Levine, said Robbie was surrounded by his family at the time of his death, including his wife, Janet, his ex-wife, Dominique, her partner, Nicholas, and his children, Alexandra, Sebastian, Delphine, and Delphine's partner, Kenny. He's also survived by his grandchildren, Angelica, Donovan, Dominic, Gabriel, and Serafina. Robertson recently completed his 14th film music project with frequent collaborator Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon in lieu of flowers. By the way, the family is asking that donations be made to the Six Nations of Grand River to support a new Woodland Cultural Center. After the band's 1976 farewell concert, The Last Waltz was captured on film by Scorsese. Robertson worked with the director as composer, music supervisor, and music producer beginning in 1980 on films including Raging Bull, The King of Comedy, The Color of Money, Gangs of New York, The Departed, Shutter Island, The Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, The Irishman, and Killers of the Flower Moon, which has not yet come out yet. But what an amazing body of work just as a film music composer and director. But he is best known for the classic songs he wrote for the band, including The Wait, Up on Cripple Creek, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, and The Shape I'm In. Also, It Makes No Difference. His story with the band was captured in the 2019 documentary, Once Were Brothers. Robertson did what turned out to be his final interview just 2 weeks ago with Variety magazine, talking about his 55 years of collaborating with Scorsese on Up Through the Flower Moon, which is set to come out later this year. We're in awe ourselves that our brotherhood has outlasted everything, he said of his work with the director. We've been through it, we've been there and back. I'm so proud of our friendship and our work. It's just been a gift in life. The singer-songwriter-guitarist was 16 years of age when he joined the Hawks. The group began apprenticing at the American Rockabilly as American Rockabilly singer Ronnie Hawkins' backup unit. Robertson and his bandmates, drummer Levon Helm, bassist Rich Danko, pianist Richard Manuel, and organist Garth Hudson struck out on their own as the band in 1964. The Hawks served as Bob Dylan's forceful touring band, minus Helm for most dates, during the singer-songwriter's tumultuous first electric tour of 1965 through 66. They reunited with their dissident percussionist during the famed much bootlegged informal recording sessions with Dylan known as the Basement Tapes in 1967. Signed to Capitol Records in 1968, the rechristened band shot to fame with its first two albums, Music from Big Pink and The Band, which drew from a heady stream of American music tributaries and would continue and include both contemporaries like Eric Clapton and George Harrison, succeeding generations of American roots musicians. The Band. And its guitarist, singer, songwriter, Robbie Robertson, fading into history, along with this amazing Renaissance man. As an amateur musician, in most cases, I did have some professional dates. I got to say that the band did make a huge impact on the American music scene, long surviving their brief record deals and their famous Last Waltz concert. So, once again, the band in heaven gets bigger every day. It's sad to see, but it is the way of things, is it not? This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. I'm John David Wells. It's August 10th. It is Thursday. For you TGIF fans, sure happy it's Thursday. Many people watching this broadcast may remember that I did an early morning show on the radio station I was the general manager of. And it was the morning report with Christy and JD. Christy Cisneros once admitted to me, after about a year on the air, she said, "Oh, sure happy it's Thursday. The TGIF thing. I get it now." So that was amusing. This is not amusing, but it is important. Normally, I don't spend a lot of time on op-ed pieces, but there's one that you need to read on Fox News. Go to foxnews.com and check this out. There may be no harder job in the U.S. government than Attorney General. What makes it uniquely challenging? On one hand, the Attorney General is a political position, which is responsible for executing White House policy agendas. On the other, the Attorney General in the Department of Justice. He or she leads is responsible for enforcing the law in an even-handed and neutral fashion. Many people, including this reporter, believes that the Department of Justice is not doing that job. Indeed, this op-ed piece says the DOJ is rapidly deteriorating on multiple fronts due to what increasingly appears to be selective enforcement. Merrick Garland has the opportunity, and this author says the obligation to reinstill confidence in the Department of Justice, but he needs to move fast. This is Carrie Kupek, the Carrie Kupek Urban from Fox News. She comes up with a list of 7 questions that Merrick Garland needs to answer, and they're good. Why did the U.S. Attorney in D.C. decline to prosecute 67% of the people arrested in Washington for crime last year? The Washington Post called this startling, since D.C. violent crime is significantly up, murder alone by almost 30%. And the D.C. U.S. Attorney is a unique office responsible for prosecuting both federal and local crimes. Are you concerned about what is happening or not happening out of the office down the street from you? That is an important question. 2, are you committed to devoting the same resources and vigor to fight violent crime in Washington and in cities across America as you are toward prosecuting January 6th offenders? The DC U.S. Attorney website is dominated by January 6th updates and very little on the murders and crime that are ravaging the city. Question 3. Why did DOJ prosecutor Leo Wise recommend no prison time for Hunter Biden, but insisted on a year in prison for the former Baltimore police commissioner who committed exactly the same crime? The commissioner owed far less in taxes than Hunter, and yet ensured that he would go to jail while he sought to give Hunter sweeping immunity for other potential crimes committed. Question 4. Are you concerned about the appearance of aggressively prosecuting the current GOP frontrunner for the 2024 race? The DOJ has a known policy on election sensitivity. Does the DOJ plan to pause, and if so, when, all investigative and prosecutorial steps with respect to the former president in the months leading up to the 2024 election in order to avoid the appearance of influencing that election? Question 5. Given that Joe Biden is the Attorney General's boss and has declared his son's innocence publicly, why have you not appointed a special counsel to investigate Hunter, to remove any appearance of impropriety, and assure the public of even-handed treatment under the law? Question 6. Are you concerned about the appearance of disparate treatment from special counsels? Special counsel John Durham did not bring a conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government charge against members of the Hillary Clinton campaign who sought to influence the 2016 election in their favor by feeding known false information about Trump to the FBI. But Jack Smith did bring the same charges against Trump regarding his behavior in the 2024 election. While special counsels are independent, the law allows you to intervene if necessary. And question number 7. Why did the Southern District of New York send a letter asking when the judge was planning on putting Hunter Biden's former best friend and business partner, Devon Archer, in jail, right before Archer was set to testify before a congressional committee? Given that it has been 18 months since Archer was sentenced and he was scheduled to present testimony to Congress implicating President Biden and his son in potentially problematic business dealings, do you think the timing of the letter was problematic? Ms. Urban then opines, the bottom line is, as America's top cop, the Attorney General is not afforded the luxury of staying silent and amid growing frustration that his department is selectively enforcing the law, with those of a particular political persuasion consistently appearing to escape scrutiny and punishment. Ms. Urban says, I hope Attorney General Garland seeks out an opportunity soon to answer some of these questions that are fundamental to the American people's trust in our justice system. That is a great piece. It is something that you need to read for yourself, and I suggest you do it immediately. Now, I continually point out that this broadcast is not partisan. I am not a Republican. I was I no longer am. Why? Because the Republican Party has found way after way after way to not do what they say they're going to do. They provide excellent lip service and very little follow through. And I've had enough. And so I am a constitutional conservative. There is no Republican vis-a-vis Democrat bias on this broadcast. There is, however, a bias toward the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers. I spent a lot of time on the Federalist Papers and have found amazing quotes by the framers of this nation to explain what their thoughts were when they framed this nation we currently live in. Many of these very same issues are covered in depth by the Federalist Papers. I sincerely recommend that everybody just go through them. It's formal 18th century language. It's a difficult read, but it's worth every bit of time that you spend on them. It's an amazing document. There's also something else. In this nonpartisan way, I can assure everyone in this nation that a political DOJ, political executive branch agencies, are the biggest threat to American freedom and liberty that our country has faced, at least during our lifetime. That is true. That is absolutely true. Second place, of course, would be the Cold War, which got very, 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 very nerve-wracking all the way to the end in the early 90s. None of us are safe from political implementation of law. Yes, in this particular case, there is a particular political party that is nourished by what is partisan law enforcement. But that's temporary. That is simply temporary. Indeed, if President Trump is someone who is elected to be the president in 2024 by the people of the United States, he has already said that he is going to confront the deep state. Will he use his DOJ to thus politically prosecute people who have stepped out of line? Now, a lot of people will say, no, those people really made big mistakes. They really did politicize executive branch agencies and they deserve accountability. But that's only one side of the question. The other side of the question is this political prosecution of the president's enemies. That's assuming that it happens. If President Trump is not elected president in 2024, all of this will likely fade into history very quickly, mainly because the mainstream media, also a part of all of this, will simply say, see, there was nothing going on here, let's move on. This is disastrous for this nation. It is, as I said, the biggest threat to freedom and liberty in this nation that we have seen. We've already reported today that there seems to be a very serious interest in FBI quarters to identify devout Catholics as possible terrorists in this nation based solely on their religious beliefs. That is a stunning violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution. And yet it persists. The FBI under the gun right now because there was this memo from one of the Virginia field offices that talked about the persecution of devout Catholics. At the time, Director Christopher Wray showed up before Congress, the Oversight Committee, and the Weaponization of Government Committee, and testified that as soon as he read that memo from Virginia, he immediately fired everybody that was responsible and disavowed it. And did not bring up the fact that the Los Angeles and Portland field offices were also involved. This gets wider and broader and worse every second. It is a clear violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution that indeed guarantees freedom of a religious practice. It's one of the first things that the framers decided had to be enumerated in the Bill of Rights. And for very good reason. Free speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religious practice. It's essential. It's essential to this nation because As everyone knows, when this country was a British colony or a set of British colonies, that was not the case. As a matter of fact, many of the people that came to the United States came to this nation, this brave new world, specifically to avoid religious persecution. Indeed, my family made that trip. We've been here since 1635. And so when you look at all of this, this is a monstrous distortion of federal law enforcement. And all of us, it makes no difference what political party you're a part of, will, if this is allowed to stand, face the wrath of political prosecution of law. We are a nation of law, not politics. The Constitution begins with the words, "We the people," not "we the politicians." Justice must be blind. Justice must be equal. And there is confirmation that neither is occurring at this particular moment. And it lays right at the feet of Merrick Garland, who is the current Attorney General. Yes, it's a tough job. Yes, it's very difficult to balance politics with law enforcement. But that's why, theoretically, the very best people we can find to do that job are chosen for it. And so, that doesn't seem to have happened in this case. These questions are questions that I have mused over on this broadcast myself, but they are perfectly framed in this op-ed piece on foxnews.com. Go see it. Go read it. Those questions have to be answered, along with other questions. And that takes me to where we stand right this very moment. I've made it abundantly clear that all we have heard from the House Oversight Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, these pieces of information that we have are not evidence yet. They're not evidence because they have not withstood the legal challenge to become evidence in a court of law. What they do indicate is probable cause for an investigation. There have been plenty of investigations by special prosecutors against Republicans. There has been one against this Russian collusion situation regarding President Trump by John Durham. But these other ones, these look very political. And these indictments also look very political. The question about when is the DOJ going to relent and get out of the way of Donald Trump in his campaign for the 2024 presidency? I don't know that that's going to happen, but I know it probably should. That would raise the stakes against President Trump should he fail in that election attempt. Now, that's not a lead pipe cinch either. The former president, has a long way to go to be able to be the president of the United States. President 45 and 47. He's got a long way to go. He's got some very stiff competition. While I voted for President Trump twice because he was the best candidate overall, although I've described him as a vulgarian, I have criticized his communication with the people of the United States. Certainly not presidential. I did vote for him, and I tell the truth on this broadcast. But I haven't decided to vote for him for a third time because I'm waiting to see just exactly where this campaign goes. But if he fails to win it, or if he fails to win the Republican nomination for the presidency, then all of this can move forward. Whether it will or will not remains to be seen. But if he wins, then none of this, likewise I've said with the Biden administration and the Biden family and so on, if there is not a Republican president that is committed to the equal application of law, all of this will disappear. Well, if President Trump is reelected, all of the charges against him will disappear. Is that fair? Is that right? Well, as I'm wont to say, from a standpoint of Zen, we'll see. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
This is the Wells Report. Good morning. I'm John David Wells. If you are watching on Rumble, this is the second broadcast that we've been doing on Rumble Live. This is the second one. And we got a whole bunch of response yesterday, and we really appreciate everybody that joined us on Rumble. There is a little technical thing I want to talk to you about. We're experiencing what are maddening video freezes and so on. We are working on that. We have redone all of the internet wiring in this studio in order to chase this down to get a smooth presentation of this broadcast. And we're just having trouble with it. We're going to work on this and we're going to get this fixed. But I know it's frustrating, but I think the audio, what you hear, is pretty much unfettered. And so I hope you can bear with us until we get these video things taken care of. This is the Wells Report. We were talking a little bit about what looks an awful lot like FBI persecution of the Catholic faith. This from Fox News. House Republicans say FBI documents they've obtained prove that several field offices contributed to a memo that targeted traditional Catholics as, quote, potential terrorists, unquote, conflicting with recent sworn testimony from FBI Director Christopher Wray. Republican leadership in the House Judiciary Committee revealed in a letter sent to Wray yesterday that the said document they subpoenaed from the agency details how, quote, both the FBI Portland and FBI Los Angeles field offices were involved in or contributed to the creation of the FBI's assessment of traditional Catholics as potential domestic terrorists. This new information suggests the FBI's use of its law enforcement capabilities to intrude on America's First Amendment rights is more widespread than initially suspected. This from Chairman Jim Jordan, the Republican from Ohio, co-chair Mike Johnson, he's the Republican from Louisiana, writing in that letter. The information also contradicts Wray's congressional testimony. The FBI's anti-Catholic initiative was a single product by a single field office. The FBI Richmond internal memo titled Interest of Racially or Ethnically Motivated Violent Extremism in Radical Traditional Catholic Ideology almost certainly presents new mitigation opportunities, unquote. That was leaked in January and drew instant criticism from those people in the Republican caucus. It identified a radical traditionalist Catholic as a potentially racially or ethnically motivated violent extremist and said that racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists in a radical traditionalist Catholic RTC ideology almost certainly presents opportunities for threat mitigation through the exploration of new avenues for tripwire and source development. Excuse me. Tripwire, by the way, that is a code word for surveillance. That's what that is. And a tripwire, that's an awful lot like a booby trap, is it not? That was what was in the letter that was strongly reacted to by Christopher Wray. Following the leak of that memo, the FBI told Fox News Digital that headquarters quickly began taking action to remove the document from FBI systems and conduct a review of the basis for that document. Jordan and Johnson wrote yesterday that for months the committee sought information relating to that memo, but that the FBI failed to voluntarily comply with their requests. On January 25th, the FBI produced a version of the Richmond document with fewer redactions than the two previous versions it had produced. Republicans said the new version with fewer redactions makes it clear that investigations into Catholic organizations in Los Angeles and Portland fed into the Richmond office memo. Most concerning of all, the newly produced version of the document explicitly states that the FBI Richmond coordinated with FBI Portland in preparing the assessment. This is what we call a smoking gun. This is a clear violation of the First Amendment guarantee of religious practice, especially when you consider that no extremist actual acts of extremism has been announced or prosecuted or dealt with in any way by the FBI. This looks like persecution to me. Just an opinion. Just an opinion. It appears that both the FBI Portland and FBI Los Angeles field offices were involved in or contributed to the creation of the FBI assessment of traditional Catholics as potential domestic terrorists. This revelation raises the question of why you redacted this information in previous versions of the documents you produced to the committee, and it reinforces the committee's need for all FBI material responsive to the April 10th subpoena, including production of the FBI Richmond document without redaction. The FBI, in a statement provided to Fox News, disputed the Republican assertions that Wray's testimony was contradicted in the findings of the new version of the document. Quote, Director Wray's testimony on this matter has been accurate and consistent, while the document referred to information from other field offices' investigations of racially or ethnically motivated violent extremist subjects. That does not change the fact the product was produced by a single field office. That the original redacted version of the memo left out the FBI's Los Angeles and Portland field offices looks an awful lot like obstruction of justice. It certainly is obstruction of Congress. And if indeed that's the case, then as I said earlier on the front page, this gets wider and deeper and more awful as time goes by and more information is known about what is, at least has the appearance of FBI persecution of the Catholic faith. This is the Wells Report. Hour number 2 is next.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
Do you own a timeshare? At first, maybe it seemed like a great investment, but then you realized a lot of the promises made to you were simply not true. A little later, you started receiving the monthly maintenance fees and additional associated bills they failed to mention when you signed the agreement. And now their fees keep rising. Your times to actually use the timeshare keep shrinking, and the resort has no interest in letting you out of the agreement. Your vacation dream has turned into a timeshare nightmare. An overwhelming, never-ending financial obligation that will fall on your children after you're gone. And it seems as if there is no way out. Well, here's some great news. There is a way out. The Timeshare Exit Hotline has helped hundreds of people just like you. Desperate people who thought they were stuck in this burden forever. Although most professionals in the timeshare industry are legitimate, there are those that use aggressive, sometimes even misleading sales tactics to try and trick innocent people into signing their lives away. We've heard many stories of people who have been lied to and others who were kept in a room for over 10 hours, not provided water or anything to eat, pressured until they were exhausted. These people finally signed a contract just to get out of there. If you're one of the unfortunate people who have been roped into a timeshare nightmare and feel there is no way out, call the number on your screen right now. When we take your case, it means we are highly confident that we can win. We'll provide you with an affordable, one-time fixed fee and our 100% client satisfaction guarantee. Now you don't have to face arrogant, aggressive salespeople alone. We're experts in consumer protection, real estate, and contract law. Even if they bullied you into an agreement, rest assured they're not going to bully us. So don't wait. Call us right now. Even if you tried another company that failed you, call us. Our track record of successful negotiations speaks for itself. The call is free, the information is free, and there is absolutely no obligation. A single phone call could free you of this burden. So don't wait. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline right now. If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. I'm John David Wells. Today is August 10th. It's Thursday, year of our Lord 2023. We bring you the news, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. In other words, we de-propagandize the news. We make commentary. That's not news, not at all. Commentary is opinion, both yours and mine. And so we debate. You can do that by calling 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172, or you can take part in the chat room, which is on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Rumble as we speak. The FBI shot and killed a man in Utah while agents were trying to arrest him at his home for making threatening statements regarding President Joe Biden ahead of his visit to that state. The man, Provo resident Craig DeLew Robertson, 75 years of age, was charged Tuesday with 3 felony counts for threats against the president, making interstate threats, influencing, impeding, and retaliating against federal law enforcement and officers by threat. The shooting occurred at 6:15 in the morning Mountain Daylight Time yesterday when agents attempted to arrest Roberts and serve a search warrant in this matter. There is a report. We have this from Fox News, and we'll share it with you.
This happened in Provo, Utah. That's about 45 minutes away from Salt Lake City, at the home of a man who has been on the FBI's radar for many months. According to a federal criminal complaint, Craig Robertson claimed online to be a 74-year-old former Air Force vet and the owner of many rifles, shotguns, and handguns, and a so-called ghillie suit. That's a type of camouflage. The FBI says Robertson posted many credible, threatening messages on social media and was planning to take action. The complaint quotes Robertson as saying, "I hear Biden is coming to Utah, digging out my old ghillie suit and cleaning the dust off the M24 sniper rifle. Welcome, buffoon in chief." Documents show Robertson also made threats against former President Barack Obama and back in March against New York County District Attorney Alvin Bragg, saying he planned to go to New York with a gun to, quote, put a nice hole in his forehead. Court documents show agents tried contacting Robertson about that particular post. He reportedly told them it was all a dream and not to come back for him without a warrant. The FBI has not said what precipitated this morning's shooting, only that the incident is still under investigation. So far, no changes to the president's schedule here tomorrow.
All right. And so there you have it. If you want to end your life at the hands of federal agents, all you have to do is make texts and public statements just like that. Just like that. There is no way to excuse the behavior of this man. Mr. Robertson wrote his own death warrant. A lot of people say, well, the FBI is the new KGB. Not in this case. Not in this case. After Ruby Ridge and after the Waco disaster, I pointed out a different way of going about this kind of law enforcement action. In the Waco situation, I would have said, okay, here's what we do. You get 2 FBI agents, you dress them up in nice suits, you have them wear intimidating sunglasses because that's what FBI agents do. And you pull up to the front door of the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, and you stand there for just a couple of moments, in the words of Men in Black, just to give them an opportunity to draw the wrong conclusions. And then what you do, very politely, even friendly, you knock on the door and you ask for David Koresh, and you say, Mr. Koresh, sir, we have a search warrant here because we've gotten some very disturbing reports, enough for probable cause, that you are committing heinous acts inside these walls. This is a warrant. We need to search the premises. And then if Mr. Koresh says, hell no, you ain't coming in here, well, that's violation of federal law, and that leads to a different circumstance. But you do start with a friendly conversation, or friendly-ish, in a non-threatening way. The FBI, with Mr. Robertson, did that in this case. And instead of saying, sure, come on in, we'll talk. Well, he didn't. And I'm sure that when the FBI showed up at his office and said, we're going to need those weapons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, he said, you can have those weapons when you pry my cold, dead hand from around them. And they complied with his wish. This cannot be the way that people respond to what appears to be to them as government misconduct. It's not the way to do it. A lot of us who own firearms, a lot of us who are critical of the current government, often consider what would happen if something like that would happen to me, or you, or anybody else. What would happen if indeed they knock on the door and say, we need all your weapons? I thought about this long and hard. I said, is this the hill I'm going to choose to die on? And then I discovered, no, this is not the hill I'm choosing to die on. First of all, I'd never make threats like that because I know to my marrow that that is not the way to handle any of this. Indeed, I have spoken at length about the idea that indeed, if you do decide to demonstrate against this government, you take 2 things: a pocket copy of the Constitution and an American flag. You show up in numbers. You are peaceful. You do not cross police lines. Even if you're invited to, you just don't do it. You report belligerent people around you to the police directly. They're standing right in front of you. Hey, this guy has some Molotov cocktails in his pickup truck. You report him immediately. And the reason you do that is because chances are very, very likely that these bellicose hooligans are trying to make you look bad. Guys just like Mr. Robertson. What are you doing? What are you doing? That is the way to die. And indeed it happened. And I wanted to make sure that we had a moment with this because there are a lot of people making incredibly stupid statements, and they are unnecessary. They are flat unnecessary. Believe me, the United States of America still exists after 247 years, almost 2.5 centuries, because it is a self-correcting mechanism. The people of the United States believe in our nation in the vast majority. They believe in this nation as it is, and indeed are very interested in making sure their stewardship of it does not lead to another country that is run by some of the behavior we see from this government. Now, that doesn't invalidate any of those worries. It does, however, invalidate violence of any kind, threats, what have you, in the application of what is redress of grievances against the government. You can't do this. You can't do this. And I have to be perfectly honest with you, when conspiracy theorists come up and their rhetoric saying, my God, it was another Ruby Ridge shoot down. No, No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was absolutely right on the money, federal law enforcement. Interstate threats, that brings the FBI in. The FBI will finish that threat. And they should. And they should. The horrific, heinous spasm of disaster that occurred during the Kennedy years with the assassination and what happened for an entire decade afterward changed the way federal law enforcement deals with threats against the president or high government officials. Barack Obama, Eric Adams, Joe Biden, all threats from this guy? Time to get out the ghillie suit, which, by the way, is this suit that you wear that is basically just a mesh overcoat, for want of a better term. It does have strings and so on and so forth all over it and so on. But what you do is you go into a particular area and you augment that suit with the kinds of foliage that you find at that particular location. And you can sneak up on just about anybody. In fact, ghillie suits, that's a British term for a suit worn when parents and children would stalk game in England. And they would be able to get right up next to those. Well, if they were good at it, they'd be able to get right up next to those animals and see them firsthand. And so it was adopted by military snipers and so on and so forth. And eventually it would lead to Mr. Robertson believing that he was one of those guys. If he wasn't actually one of those guys, he was a veteran. And so, okay, if you want to make this what I believe to be a righteous complaint against a government that you believe is malfunctioning, you don't do it with sniper equipment. You don't do it with egregious threats across state lines. You just don't do it. You do it with an American flag, a copy of the Constitution, and knowing all the words in tune to the national anthem. And you show up with all your friends. And you make friends with the police perimeter, and if indeed there are National Guard soldiers, you make friends with those guys. You ask them if they want water. You ask them, how are they doing? What's their career like? And then at a given moment, you sing the national anthem. And if 3 or 4 or 5 million of your closest friends do that, that's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. Then you stand down and you go home. I've talked about responses to what is egregious governmental conduct. I've talked about that on this broadcast. Every single time I bring this up, I talk about non-threatening demonstrations, the Bankers Box Rebellion. That's where you go down to Home Depot or wherever you can find these Bankers Boxes, the Bankers Boxes they give you to pack your personal stuff when you get fired and escorted from a building. You know about that, right? You don't? I'm the only one? Oh. Anyway, you get one of those, you get a package of those, and you write the name of whatever representative or senator that you want removed from office. And then you drive to Washington, D.C. You assemble the box, and you get as close to the district as you can. You're not going to be able to get very far because there are going to be huge traffic jams. And then you just toss them out the window. You might get a ticket for littering. But that's about it. The other is the Nothing Rebellion, where if something egregious happens against the people of the United States by the U.S. government, you do nothing. You don't go to work. You don't buy gasoline. You don't buy groceries. You do have to have savings and food at your house. You have to be willing to stand down and completely withdraw from what is an egregiously wrongdoing government, if indeed it gets that far. But none of those things involve violence of any kind. And I will excoriate anybody that feels like violence is the way to solve these things, because it is not. This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. What are your thoughts? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. This is the Wells Report, more of which continues next on Thursday, August 10th.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. An Ecuadorian presidential candidate known for speaking up against government corruption and organized crime was shot and killed yesterday at a political rally at the Capitol amid a wave of startling violence in the South American country. There is a report from Ecuador. It has subtitles. Read them. They are poignant and horrifying, as is the video. There is no overt violence on this video. However, it's difficult to watch and hear. This is how they reported it in that South American country.
Aquí nada es gratis. Aquí nos cuesta la vida. A nosotros esta democracia nos ha costado la vida. Defender esta patria nos ha costado la vida y no vamos a permitir una nueva traición. Yo soy un hombre feliz. Miren, soy un ser feliz porque la única felicidad que vale es aquella que surge.
Yeah. That happened. It does happen. And of course, it's frightening in a lot of different ways, and not just in Quito, Ecuador. President Guillermo Lasso confirmed the assassination of Fernando Villavicencio and suggested organized crime was behind the slaying. Villavicencio was one of the 8 candidates in the August 20th presidential vote. I assure you this crime will not go unpunished, said Lasso in a statement. Organized crime has gone too far, but they will feel the full weight of the law. Ecuador's Attorney General's office said a suspect in the assassination died of wounds after being arrested by authorities. Violence in Ecuador, historically a very calm country, has surged in the past year as drug traffickers have flocked into the South American nation, resulting in a concerning uptick in drug trafficking, violent killings, and child recruitment by gangs. Videos on social media appear to show the candidate walking out of the event surrounded by guards. The video then shows Villavicencio entering a white truck followed by gunfire, information that was confirmed to the Associated Press by Patricio Zeculanda, Villavicencio's campaign advisor. The spokesman said the candidate had received death threats before the shooting, which he had reported to authorities and resulted in one detention. He called on international authorities to take action against the violence, attributing it to rising violence and drug trafficking. Quote, the Ecuadorian people are crying. Ecuador is mortally wounded, he said. Politics cannot lead to the death of any member of society. Police confirmed that several others were injured, including officers describing the incident as a terrorist act and promising to get to the bottom of the killing. Villavicencio was one of the most critical voices against corruption, especially during the government of former President Rafael Correa from 2007 to 2017. He filed many judicial complaints against high-ranking members of the Correa government, including against the ex-president himself. His comments were echoed by other candidates who demanded action, with leading candidate Luisa Gonzalez of the Citizens Revolutionary Party saying, when they touch one, they touch all of us. Another candidate and former Vice President, Otto Sonnenholzer, meanwhile, said in a news conference, we are dying, drowning in a sea of tears, and we do not deserve to live a life like this. We demand that you do something. The idea of assassination of political figures is horrifying on its face. It has visited Ecuador. It happened yesterday. Let's hope it doesn't happen anywhere else. Please. This is the Wells Report, 817-379-2172. That's our telephone number. We'll continue this broadcast next. Thanks for joining us.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us. We bring you the news honestly and fairly, and we look to do more of that as this broadcast continues. The House Oversight Chair, James Comer, he is a Republican from Kentucky, has delivered a third round of bank records, bringing the official paper trail of payments to more than $20 million from Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan during the Joe Biden vice presidency to the Biden family. Quote, The committee has now identified over $20 million in payments from foreign sources to the Biden family and their business associates. And indeed, the letter continues that this particular circumstance is egregious and we're continuing to investigate. President Joe Biden infamously joked, well, where's the money, when asked where all that money went. That brought up the specter of offshore accounts. The Ukrainian energy oligarch that is responsible for this, theoretically, this is all alleged. It would take 10 years to unwind the paper trail. Comer has promised more amid investigations, now in their 7th month. There is a video report on it. Let's bring it to you right now on the Wells Report.
Chairman Comer claims that Hunter Biden and his associates reaped millions of dollars from wealthy oligarchs with no other services provided other than access to the Biden network. The report details payments made from Elena Baturina, one of Russia's wealthiest women and a widow of Moscow's former mayor, into a Rosemont Seneca Bohai account used by both Hunter Biden and his business associate Devon Archer. Now, this graph provided by the committee staff aims to illustrate how $3.5 million was distributed among associates of the group. Now, the White House counsel's office issued a response saying alleged payments by Baturina have already been debunked, but the committee also notes that she is the only Russian oligarch not to be sanctioned under the Biden administration. Last week, Archer testified that in the spring of 2014, then Vice President Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, as well as Yelena Baturina, at Cafe Milano. They met, of course, at that restaurant here in Washington, D.C. The committee also located payments worth more than $140,000 made to Hunter and Archer's joint account by Kenes Rakishev and the former Prime Minister of Kazakhstan, Karim Masimov. The committee notes that Masimov was convicted of serious crimes. Now, both Hunter and Joe Biden are pictured here having dinner in Washington, D.C. at Cafe Milano with both Masimov and Rakishev. They reportedly had dinner twice, once in 2014, another the following year. Now, finally, the report details $6.5 million from Vadim Pozarsky, who worked with the Burisma executive Zlochevsky, who is named in the FBI document detailing the alleged bribery scheme involving Joe and Hunter. He also placed Hunter on Burisma's board. But Chairman Comer says that he's going to continue to investigate whether President Biden has been compromised or whether any of these deals posed a threat to national security.
All right, and that is the report from those fine folks, and we appreciate them very sincerely. President Joe Biden infamously joked about, okay, well, where's the money? And the specter of offshore accounts came up. During President Joe Biden's vice presidency, Hunter Biden sold him as the brand to reap millions from oligarchs in Kazakhstan, Russia, and Ukraine, wrote Comer in a statement. He continued, quote, it appears no real services were provided other than access to the Biden network, including Joe Biden himself. And Hunter Biden seems to have delivered. The latest release came after a week after former Hunter Biden business associate Devon Archer told congressional investigators and separately in a public Tucker Carlson interview that then Vice President Joe Biden joined Hunter Biden's calls during business meetings and dinners where foreign businessmen were present and heard his voice, which was the prize in luring foreign businesses to pay to send signals to the highest level of the Obama White House. Comer now has receipts to corroborate the dinner claim, exposing Joe Biden's oft-repeated claim he had no knowledge of Hunter Biden's foreign influence peddling operation. This is made clear by meals at Cafe Milano, where then Vice President Joe Biden dined with oligarchs from around the world who had sent money to his son, said Comer's statement. It's clear that President Biden knew about his son's business dealings and allowed himself to be the brand sold to enrich the Biden family while he was Vice President of the United States. By the way, this report is from Newsmax. While any House GOP impeachment movement against Biden for the alleged bribery would stall in a Democrat-held Senate, Comer vows to keep the transparency flowing to Congress and the American people. The House Oversight Committee will continue to follow any money trail and obtain witness testimony to determine whether foreign actors targeted the Bidens, President Biden is compromised or corrupt, and our national security is threatened, said Comer's statement. Among other top-line summaries of the memo include Archer and Hunter Biden's Rosemont Seneca received incremental payments originating from foreign sources, attempting to hide the source and size of the payments. Russian billionaire Yelena Baturina transferred $3.5 million to Rosemont Seneca Thornton, a shell company, in February of 2014 before the Obama administration allowed Vladimir Putin to take Crimea that March. And around $1 million was transferred to Devon Archer, and the remainder was used initially to fund a new company account, Rosemont Seneca Bohai, which Devon Archer and Hunter Biden used to receive other foreign wires. Baturina is the widow of former Moscow mayor Yuri Luzkov, who died in 2019. Later, in the spring of 2014, Archer and Hunter Biden joined the board of the Ukrainian energy company Burisma, which agreed to pay them $1 million annually. VP Joe Biden visited Ukraine shortly after the first payments. The payments were wired to Rosemont Seneca Bohai and incrementally transferred to different Hunter Biden bank accounts. After Hunter Biden met with Ken Rakashev, an advisor to the Kazakhstan prime minister in Washington, D.C. in the spring of 2014, the exact amount of Hunter Biden's sports car, $142,300, was wired to Rosemont Seneca Bohai. The sports car was bought the next day for that precise amount. After the apparent gift, Burisma board members Archer and Hunter Biden arranged a visit to Kazakhstan in June of 2014 to cut a three-way deal with Burisma, a Chinese state-owned company, and the Kazakhstan government. Amid those payments from Baturina, Burisma, and Kenis Rakashev, then VP Joe Biden dined with them in the spring of 2014 and 2015. This looks mighty bad. But after I report things along that line, especially from the House Oversight Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, I take great pains to point out that this is not evidence. This is testimony. Evidence in any courtroom anywhere in the United States is not evidence until it meets a judicial or court test to make sure that it is indeed evidence. Evidence is tossed out of court all the time. So when Democrat sources, and there was an immediate response from USA Today, when government sources talk about how there's no evidence directly linking President Biden to any of this money, in a way, they have a serious point. It is not evidence at this time. It is testimony. Does it prove probable cause? In my opinion only, and I don't do this for a living, but I do know some things about probable cause. Indeed, that is evident. It should have triggered an investigation. Indeed, there was one on the part of the IRS, which was not only stopped by the Department of Justice, the people actually taking part in the investigation were dismissed from the case. They became whistleblowers. They testified famously before a tripart committee of the House Oversight, Judiciary, and Ways and Means Committee, and testified to much of this very same thing, and testified to the fact, excuse me, that the DOJ indeed stopped their investigation. This looks plainly terrible. It looks plainly terrible. Earlier on the broadcast, last hour, in fact, an op-ed piece asked 7 questions of Merrick Garland. Those questions need to be answered. Also, it is time for the administration. It is time for the DOJ. It is time for the FBI. It is time for all of these politicized deep state agencies to step up and start telling the truth about all of what they have done in the past 7 to 10 years. It's all but inescapable that there is political enforcement of law in this nation. That is disaster. It takes this nation right to the abyss. The descriptor banana republic has been focused on the government of the United States. Just how much further, how much more damage is going to occur to this nation and its society based on intransigence from these very agencies to step up and say, okay, here's what we've been doing. This is what we believed at the time we were doing it. It is antithetical to the workings of the United States of America, and we stand ready for accountability. That's what needs to happen. Likewise, the Biden administration has to start dealing with these things on a real basis. What has happened, just from an observational standpoint, what has happened indeed does point to a willingness of Biden advocates to say there's no direct evidence linking the president to any of this. And they do have a point. The response to this particular news article was swift from USA Today. Republicans on the House Oversight Committee issued another report yesterday criticizing Joe Biden and his family for allegedly corrupt international business dealings, but critics, including the White House, said the report is a political hatchet job that offers no proof that Biden was involved. The committee, led by Chairman James Comer, in a report said it plans to continue investigating President Biden to find evidence of corruption, even as it acknowledged that it has no evidence that he financially benefited from the myriad foreign business dealings of his son Hunter. Now, we point out fact and bias on this broadcast, especially when it comes to the mainstream media, which we have described as corrupt. And in that particular paragraph, there is stark bias. It is not something that you see in a normal journalistic sense. It starts talking about the committee plans to continue the investigation, and people call it, from the administration, a political hatchet job. Is this really a political hatchet job? And if it is, what do we call what has happened to President Trump? What do we call that if not a political hatchet job? There is a well-worn, passive-aggressive, infuriating tactic used by people to accuse your opponents of what you yourself is doing. And once again, that is in plain evidence here. This is awful. And indeed, when you start talking about it here, you say this final sentence, there is no evidence that President Biden directly financially benefited from the myriad foreign business dealings of son Hunter. Someone's responsible for this corruption. Does this signal the mainstream media is willing to throw Hunter Biden in jail for decades in an effort to protect President Biden? This harkens back to what is sheer covering of the president from a standpoint of trying to allay whatever allegations come his way by the mainstream media. We now have evidence that indeed the FBI and DOJ did exactly the same thing. Having evidence of plain criminal wrongdoing in their possession, testimony that pointed to these graft and corruption charges that we keep hearing thrown about without any actual writ of law, without any kind of warrant, without any kind of indictment, without any of that stuff. Is that fair? There are people that could say it's not, but in the context of what has happened to the last two presidents, it's certainly something that looks like a quid pro quo among the various parties. But what cannot be immediately pointed out, as observed, is how USA Today and other leftist media sources rush to the defense of the Biden family, even when there is these allegations, point with real evidence behind them, point to criminal misdeeds and indeed corruption. So you can say all you want to that this is a nothing burger, but is it a nothing burger? And when you start talking about the fact that the president is not tied to any of this with sheer evidence, what presidential supporters are dealing with at this point is a RICO indictment, a corrupt organizations charge. That's how they took down other crime families. Not saying that the Biden family is a crime family, other people do, but that's how they took those crime families down when it came to organized crime. This is getting very ugly. It's getting bad, and it should stop. This is the Wells Report.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Call 877-655-6870. That's 877-655-6870. 877-655-6870.
This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. Thanks very much for joining us. We've been talking about allegations regarding President Biden when he was vice president and the apparent Biden family brand that has nourished that family with tens of millions of dollars. And I wanted to make it clear that when I said this should stop, I'm not talking about the investigations into the Biden family. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what is plainly evident, that there is a political problem within the deep state, what is called the deep state. The law enforcement, intelligence, the Homeland Security agencies of the United States playing politics with law. That is what I was discussing when I said that. It must stop. Likewise, the administration is going to have to do something a bit better than what they're doing. Peter Doocy, fresh off of what is paternity leave, was back in action again yesterday. He spoke to the president regarding some of the things that are being alleged against him with regards to his personal family's business dealings.
President Biden getting defensive and lashing out at our very own Peter Doocy yesterday when asked about his family's shady business dealings.
There's this testimony now where one of your son's former business associates is claiming that you were on speakerphone a lot with them talking business. Is that what?
Never talk business in anybody. And I know you'd have a lousy question.
Well, why is that a lousy question?
Because it's not true.
It's not a lousy question. It's not a lousy question. It's a journalism question. And Mr. President, quite reasonably, sir, you need to start answering these questions. Now, to be fair, and we are fair on this broadcast, how do you answer these questions? How do you answer these questions? So you say, well, there's no direct evidence linking the president to any of this. The implication, of course, is throwing Hunter Biden under the bus as the agent provocateur of all of it. But you cannot watch this without these allegations unfolding before us. You can't watch those without hearkening back to brave statements made by Democrats when they were trying to chase down President Trump for corruption of one kind or another. In fact, then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi talked about how the seriousness of the allegations themselves require that President Trump step down or what have you. You can't have it both ways. You simply can't have it both ways. What you have to do here is you have to come clean. And I don't know how they would do it, which means that they probably won't, because how do you explain this story? How do you explain this story? While Vice President Biden was the vice president during the Obama administration, there were news reports that President Obama called Joe Biden into the Oval Office for a very tense meeting where he said, "Knock it off." And apparently those words went unheeded. Well, now we have this. There's another famous Biden quote: "Never underestimate the ability of Joe to F things up." Well, here we are. So I sit here in this studio, Fort Wells Keller, and I bravely say, Mr. President, you have to come clean. But how in the hell do you? How do you do that? Well, the president wouldn't do it directly. What they'd have to do is they'd have to start explaining where all this money went. And I don't think that's explainable. All of it would rest at the feet of Hunter Biden. Genuine indictments would then ensue with trials. And without a firm explanation as to where all this money went, Hunter Biden would be thrown in jail. Now, the president would immediately pardon him. But that would be the end of the Biden presidency. Now, I don't know how they explain it. I don't. But I do believe that what is actually happening is that there is incremental pressure being put on the president to make a decision. Likewise, incremental pressure on the Democrat Party to make a decision regarding the future of Joe Biden. And I believe that as more and more of this evidence comes to the fore, and there is more on the way, that I believe that the president is going to have to make a decision. Will he be able to withstand this scandal? Is he going to be able to do it? I don't know. I don't know. People have said that in comparison to what this looks like, and once again, none of it proven. We're not trying the president in the media, certainly not on the Wells Report. But allegations of this nature, with hard data to back them up, makes Watergate look like a jaywalking ticket. Well, that figurative jaywalking ticket cost President Nixon his presidency. He resigned. Now, will that indeed happen? Will Joe Biden walk away from the office? I don't know. Will a deal be struck? We're stopping the Biden agenda, which has happened, and we will leave the president alone if he agrees not to run for president in 2024. Again, there are possibilities of either. Which will be the course they take? We'll see. The executive producer of the Wells Report is Dirk Steele. The associate producer and publicist of this broadcast is Jube Dankworth. Find her at netmediaconsultants.com. My name is John David Wells. Thank you very much for joining us on this broadcast. We'll do the Friday edition tomorrow. Get your fishing shirts ready for Fishing Shirt Friday on the Wells Report. And okie dokie. There you go. Okay, so the on again, off again, on again band gig for tonight may be indeed off again. I'm talking to people that are within the the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Okay, so watch Facebook. I'll put out a notice on whether or not my new band is going to play then as we find out more. And aside from that, I really don't have any idea what's going on. I'm just the drummer. That's all I do. I just show up and play the drums. That's what I do. And when they tell me to show up, I show up. And when they tell me not to show up, I don't show up. Whether I will or won't tonight remains to be seen. I will let you know. God bless all y'all, especially everybody on Rumble. Thanks very much for being a part of the broadcast, and we will see you again tomorrow for Fishing Shirt Friday, and that'll be fun. Until then.